What's going on, everybody? You know who it is. This is Austin, aka More Than an Agent, here on the Real Estate Blueprint Podcast, the podcast for the Black and Brown community. Here with my Dominicano hermano, Jonathan Soto. Soto, what's up, baby?
All is well, man. All is well. Can't wait to get back on the grind and give the community what they need. That empowerment to help create generational wealth.
It's 2023, so let's get into in this particular case, a little bit of housekeeping. Definitely everybody that's listening, tuning in, and sorry on our part, only because we didn't realize just how many people actually will tune in, ask questions, and actually will take the plunge into buying, selling, actually make a move. So shout out to all of y'all. And we are going to be working to make this definitely a lot more consistent, but please continue to like, share, comment, whatever you have to do, so that way we can share the sugar, share the game, share these gems. Be sure to leave a rating and review. That's how we get noticed a lot more, especially on iTunes and all the algorithms and so on and so forth. And be sure to click that link in both of our bios if you're looking to make a move, especially for 2023. Because we got goals. I know that y'all have goals. So in this particular case, we might as well work together to make both of our goals pop off and happen. Without further ado, for this particular episode, we want to give you guys 6 tips, 6 key takeaways, 6 gems to work with. So that way, as you're buying in 2023, you can at least not have to worry about your complete detriment, because I'm pretty sure you've heard a bunch of news that's going on about interest rates going crazy and it's not a great time to buy and so on and so forth. So we want to give you guys 6 tips, 6 takeaways, 6 gems that you can apply just for your own search. So that way you have a prosperous and fruitful home buying process, especially in 2023. So do you want to go first, or I'm going first? You know what? I'm going to have you go first.
Let me go first. Let me go first.
Ahead. What we got?
Number 1, I think this is probably the most important out of my 3, out of your 3, out of overall. Number 1 is you got to have a good team. So the lender, the agent, the attorney, the title, your inspector, everyone involved in a transaction. Real estate has a lot of moving parts. If one person is dragging their feet or not doing what they're supposed to, it's going to drag every other one else. And with that being said, that can possibly make you pay for extension fees on your lender, for extending your rate. It can possibly your credit expires. We have to rerun your credit. A lot of moving parts, and that can delay your transaction. It can possibly hurt you, maybe even disqualify you. Let's say you were just making it a 585. The attorney was slow, the inspector was slow, everyone was slow. Now you have to rerun your credit. Your credit drops to a 560. That can kill the deal. So if you got to have a great team for a real estate transaction. If everyone got to be a pit bull, everyone got to be on point, everyone got to know what's going on, the right product, the right time to lock, negotiation skills on the real estate, realtor aspect, as well as the attorney aspect. If you're using an attorney, depending on what state you're in, everyone got to be a pit bull and be ready to push your loan across the finish line.
One thing I'm able to pride myself on, as far as when I'm speaking with clients and I'm no, you're working with my team, to your point, I think it's totally underestimated. And I think for the most part, I think everybody thinks that everybody that's on your team, you're getting kickbacks from, right? It's oh, now I'm gonna go shop for my own. It's just I'll tell every single client, it's never an instruction, always a suggestion. But it's just the fact that we've been in the business more than long enough. And more importantly, we've seen what it's like to, have teammates fail or drop the ball or provide a service that our clients aren't necessarily happy with. And that causes us to obviously want to put them in the positions to do nothing but win. And, to your point, that your team, honestly will make or break your transaction. So I'm with that on the number one. On my end, number two, especially buying in this particular market, and not only this market, any particular market, it really honestly doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because, and the only reason why it doesn't matter, what I mean by that is like the biggest thing surrounding like buyers right now is interest rates. And like they're higher, so now like the affordability is higher and so on and so forth. And that's all good, well and dandy, and that is true. So I don't want to like step away from the facts. That's actually what's happening. However, the reality is just the fact that there's only one thing that matters the most. And tip number two of what I'll give you is that the only number that matters is your monthly mortgage payment. That's the only thing that matters like at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people before, I mean, we've had a couple of individuals, right, where I was talking to one individual yesterday, and they're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure like at this point, like I'm gonna need 100,000 to put down. And it's like that used to be like the, one myth, right? But it's still the myth. It's still the myth. And there's so many reservations and doubts about how much it actually costs that I think people will not even get started or not even find out like what they actually have to do. But the only thing that'll truly matter, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, and I say at the end of the day, meaning of course your down payment is going to matter, close your closing costs are going to matter, because those are the two lump sums in which, that surrounds your real estate transaction that are, that you're going to have to depart with. But the number that matters the most at the end of closing will always be your monthly mortgage payment, and make that along with your reserves for down payment and closing costs and so on and so forth. But the end number that really matters the most is your down payment. And the only reason why is because, again, like if you're like, hey, I thought I needed like, 35,000 in order to, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you have? Like I have 20. Perfect. That's enough. Have you heard about this particular program? There's always a program to match exactly what you have financially. There's always a program for you to match like exactly what you have financially. And as long as you don't pigeonhole yourself and automatically assume that you can't do it, and as long as you ask, like I always want people to ask, and then like I'd rather have them have the data, and then you can find out, okay, I'm either not ready or I'm ready, or I'll be ready when I do this. But as long as you have the data, it makes things so much easier. But at the end of the day, tip number two, just focus on the end number, because like it's the only number that will truly matter after you close. Whatever you can bring to the table, we have programs for that. Like there's so many ways that you can bring as less money to the table as possible. And the only like dollar amount that you're stuck with after will be your monthly mortgage payment.
I agree, because like you said, there's programs out there. USDA to be specific, 0% down. You just gotta be in a rural area.
In a rural area, I don't know how many farmers we got out here.
Well, not farmer, but if you look at the map, most of the United States, it's considered rural, if I'm not mistaken. It's just when you're closer to like the city area, that's when. So once you get closer to New York, that's a no. But if you're like my area, West Morris County, that all of this is USDA
considered rural.
That's
interesting. So like I always thought that rural just meant like farm, like you
got see, that's a misconception right there. Perfect misconception, right?
That's my own misconception. The same thing that I do for my clients. Yeah, see, more than an agent. This is the exact reason why I'm human as well. But that's interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and there also, like you said, different options. There's grants, give you 10 to 15,000 in the state of New Jersey. Each state has their own grant, so you can definitely, if you're in another state, there's different options for you. So there's definitely options out there. There's, what's interesting? You can actually do a grant with a USDA loan, and you could possibly buy a house, 0% down payment, grant pay for your closing costs. You can possibly, it's a little tougher to probably get. Is it doable? Yes. You just got to know your options and work with the right team to get you. to that closing table.
And that's all that matters, to be honest with you. All right, cool. Let's
Number two.
Number three. No, that's right.
Number,
that's right.
Number two for me, number three overall.
For sure. Number three in totality, though. What we got?
So I would say wherever you're buying, if you're buying a single family, buying a multifamily, know your market. You can buy in a specific city, but there's definitely pockets in that city where the price is going to be higher and the rents are going to be higher. Perfect example, 𝐒𝐿𝐴 section of Newark, New Jersey. Some parts of 𝐒𝐿𝐴 are a lot pricier than other parts. If you're close to the park area, those rents may be higher, the sale price may be higher, everything will be different. If you're more in a rougher area, maybe the price is a little lower. Don't assume that since it's half a mile away or whatever the case is, it's going to be the same price. So know your market, work with a great realtor that knows the area, get familiar with the area and understand the neighborhood, because you can possibly pay over or maybe get a great deal and get something in a better pocket. And you may think it's not a good deal because you're comparing it to another bad neighborhood, but understand those pocket neighborhoods, understand the area you're buying.
So that's for multifamily, right? So like, and luckily for New Jersey, like the rents are like steadily rising. So like you're able to like, work with it. But like, obviously there's a lot of people that, or a lot of landlords of properties that weren't able to raise their tenants' rent according to how fast prices were rising. Here's the answer. Okay, so thought process. As far as, so like when multifamily like will always be, well, real estate is always going to be location, right? And that's well for like the multifamilies. For the single family buyers, do you think, especially buying in this particular market, should they develop the same mentality of buying in those pockets? Because like obviously we're buying in certain pockets that maybe we wouldn't necessarily live in, but know that we can profit, right? And have the ownership piece of it. For my single family buyers that are maybe looking or have a criteria that's a little bit different from investors, do you believe that they should be handling their home buying process the exact same, AKA, all right, this is an area where maybe I won't live in this particular section, but the numbers work in this particular section, a much better section. Do I just focus on the numbers and how much it would cost for my living situation? Or do you still factor in like, hey, if being in this particular area is on your goal list, let's stick with that?
To a certain extent. So for single family is a whole different ballpark. When it comes to single family owners, depending on what's your end game, depending on what you're trying to do with it. If you possibly want to, let's say you're in South Orange and you want to rent out to college students or something like that, know your area. You have like a bi-level, a separation, you can rent the basement out. But if you don't want no type of renting out, you want to live alone, you want to have the privacy, it's good for long term, like those pocket areas, those may appreciate a little bit more. But if you don't think about anything like that, you want a good school system, you just want whatever school's attached to that specific house because you're living in that city, then you don't really have to focus too much on those pocket areas, and from my perspective.
Because a lot of people, they have to, a lot of people are adjusting their searches and they're being a lot more open to things that maybe they wouldn't have been, open to in the past, right? And because they want to get their hands on it, but totally understand. Okay, number four here, this is such a good segue, is that for everybody that's buying now, this very second, as you're listening to this podcast, 2023, like for everybody that's looking at buying now, I need y'all to understand that there's a difference between buying to invest, because when I say invest, it's not that I'm considering you a real estate investor or that you're already like but the reality is that once you buy a house, you're now making an investment. And there's a difference between buying a house like for the investment, and there's a difference between buying a house because you feel as though in your living situation that you own rather than rent. And I think it's a very, very, like, if we were in North Carolina, Georgia, like, like a down south out in Cleveland, out in the Midwest, and so on and so forth, where rent is, for a 3-bed, 2-bath luxury apartment, like in the middle of downtown, and it costs $1,900. It's totally different, like from a living, like from your personal finance like perspective. And the reason why I say that is because what I need people to realize is that the next wave of foreclosures, short sales, people that are in distressed positions will not be because like they've fallen behind on their payments, like not at all. The issue will be when there's a life event and it forces them to have to sell in order to move. But the reality is that because we bought at the top of the market, that you might not have as much equity like in your property in order to like sell without bringing money to the table. So like in this particular case, for example, like you bought this year, you close in summer, and then for whatever reason, if you're a tech professional and you get relocated to Texas, in which they're offering you double the money, you looking at the situation of like, oh damn, like Texas, like I can get a 5-bed, 4-bath, swimming pool in the basement. You know what I mean? Swimming pool in the basement, 7-car garage for $200,000, right? And once you make that decision, that's cool off of the purchase, but now like off your sale, now you're in a market such as New Jersey where you bought at the highest and now like you have to sell like for even higher in order to either break even or to like make a profit off of it. And that's the like challenge. But for anybody that's looking to buy right now, plan to be there for more than 3 years at bare minimum. This is not a market to be participating as a. And when I say starter home, meaning if you already, there's a difference between like going after your starter home, AKA this is where I'm starting things, this is where I'm beginning my home ownership path. And there's a difference between going after a property with the end in mind before you already closed like on the transaction. And if you're already like, all right, well, I'm gonna just post up here for like 2 years, and then it's the wrong mentality for this particular market. Only because like, goals change, timelines change, and everything like that.
I agree.
And you need to be able to weather whatever storm that we're either going to be expecting or is way overdue or whatever the case. But that's just so you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that if the market does take a turn, because we've been expecting it, it hasn't happened yet, but with interest rate changes and with buyer psychology changing, you'll want to stay 2 steps ahead just to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position where, at least for real estate, it's not something that if you do not like, you can put back in your cart with your receipt and take it back to the store.
Refund, please.
So that's my secretary. Buy because you're actually looking at the actual investment of home ownership instead of using, oh, it's better to own than it is to rent, as it means to the end of you feeling good about your living situation. 2 different things.
100%. 100%. It's what I always tell my clients. I always say, buy when you're ready, especially if you're planning to live there for a couple of years. Because if you're forcing it, you can lose your house, possibly. So
you know how many people lost their shirts? Like, You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, it's always going to be better to own than to rent. Like, okay, well, all right, well, I think that's a perspective, right? So like in 2008, let's talk about it. Who lost the most? The people that actually own these homes or the people that were renting? There's no comparison. There's no comparison at all. If you get evicted, like, it'll be a slap on the wrist, but and yes, it does show up on your identity record. But like for people that own homes, they lost everything. Like that, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare at all.
People, they were just buying because they could get approved for anything without even reviewing documents. It was a wild, wild west. It was insane. People didn't qualify. And especially those balloon payments going up, it was just a mess.
Yeah.
Now it's regulated. If you qualify, you qualify. You truly qualify. Number 5, I want to keep it short and sweet and to the point. When you find that deal you've been looking for, pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. When you find that sweet spot, pull the trigger. Pull that trigger. Put the offer in. Be aggressive. There's not many houses out there that will fit a lot of someone's bucket list or actual dream house. Sometimes you do have to compromise, maybe remove one garage, a lot of stuff maybe you need to compromise. But when you do find that deal, cash flows or investment or personal home, single family house, pull that trigger.
The law of the first deal, honestly, especially like from my particular first multifamily that like I was looking at the property, I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm like, it works. And for whatever reason, like I just was like, I just can't pull the trigger. Like it's stuck. Analysis paralysis. And like my partner at the time was just like, yo, just pull the trigger. Like you know what you're talking about. Like you know what you're talking about. Pull the trigger.
And that's the same mentality we need to take it over to the commercial side that we've been talking about. So that's something off topic. Off topic.
It's on topic but off topic, right? Because like the same way that we'll give like that particular advice, it's the same thing for what we're trying to accomplish for say buying a 10 unit, 20 unit, 30 unit, 40 unit building. And it's just, like there's gonna have at some point, even if you don't pull the trigger, just make the offer. Just make the offer of what actually works for you. Now, there's obviously a statistical chance about your offer getting accepted based on external factors and so on like that you can probably like learn about. But at the same time, like submit the offer, just get used to submitting offers and putting that energy out there. If you want, like, as far as home ownership piece, whether a single family, whether a 3-family, or whether you're trying to go after the 25 unit building, like getting in the habit of submitting offers starts to break the ice and start to create the synergy of getting your offer accepted. So yes. When you see it, pull the trigger. And that's pretty much it. Last but not least, number 6. And here's all right. The main reason why, okay, put it like this. This is a tip that like, I don't want to say it's overlooked because it's not talked about enough because it's a mentality type of tip, right? I say this, all right, so here we go. The reason why it's always going to be an amazing time to buy is because it's always a reason why it's not a good time to buy. Like, it's always a reason why it's not a good time to buy. And since I joined this business, it's always been a reason of why it's not a good time to buy. Back in 2015, we were always waiting for the crash. It's gonna be the next crash. All right, prices still went up.
16 years later.
The crash is definitely coming. It's definitely coming. No doubt about it. I'm gonna wait for the prices, I'm gonna wait for the prices to drop down. like this is when North, right? For everybody who's listening, if you're out of state, like this is like just take your like major metropolitan area. But if we were to take North, 4 families, 4plexes, quads, they were selling at 300, and we thought that that was expensive. Like we thought that that was expensive. Like if the listing price was 300, and if it was priced at 350, we were like, nah, that's priced too high.
That's too much. Next.
And then like, and now these properties are selling for 700. So what's too expensive? That's all relative. But again, it was always not a good time to buy. So it wasn't a good time to buy then. It wasn't a good time to buy in 2018. It wasn't a good time to buy in 2019.
It wasn't a good time
damn
to buy
sure
the pandemic.
wasn't a good time to buy during the COVID. How dare you? Are you serious? Don't buy in COVID. This is when the crash is definitely going to happen in COVID. And what happened? Exactly. You were handing out 1% interest rates.
Wow.
I don't know if they were that low, but like.
I got a renovation loan for 3%. Renovation loan.
Renovation loan. 200K?
Home style renovation, conventional part.
Either way, for 3%.
Double that up now, double more now. Probably today's pricing got a little worse, probably like 7% as of February.
The 3% is lower than the 3.5% that you have to put down. And that's not even if you get your NJHMFA program, we can get $15,000 like to put down. So that the interest rate is lower than what you actually had to put down in order to secure the property. But I digress on that particular situation. But that's what happens, right? Because that wasn't a good time to buy. And what happened? It wound up being another perfect opportunity to buy. So now we're in this particular scenario, and everybody's like, yo, it's not going to be the best time because interest rates and so on and so forth and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And the only thing that I'm going to say is that it's still an amazing time to buy. And the biggest reason why I say that is not because like there's always a reason why it's not a good time to buy, but because of the simple fact that that question is a very static question and it gets a very static response. Because the true response is like, well, give me the context. And then I'll tell you, like, if it's like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
are you really ready or are you not? It all comes down to, are you ready or not?
And have you taken into effect all the things that can happen upon your purchase? AKA like you can purchase something and like create equity in it, right? It's a little bit harder, but you can purchase something and create equity in it. So like if you created like a 10% like equity threshold, and if the market drips 10%, then you're currently at break even versus if you were to like buy, you know, complete retail and then the market dips 10%, now you're down 10%. But like, I just think that question had never like factors in everything that could be working towards your benefit. And it's always a question of, is it a right time to buy, yes or no? But that's because they're just looking for an answer that will revalidate what they already were thinking subconsciously.
Everyone has fears. Don't let someone else's fears get into you and stop you from what you want to do.
The opportunities are still out here. It's just that it's harder, but there's people that are closing left and right, and like it still has to happen. And I can't.
The perfect answer when someone asks me the good time to buy.
6 things, 6 tips, 6 gems. Say that again.
I was just gonna say, just for your last one, if it's a good time to buy, yes or no. Those big time investors, those big institutionals, are they buying now?
Yes.
So why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you?
And mind you, they're spending cash. They're spending cash for it.
So why shouldn't you?
And you're, you know what I mean? Like, I don't blame you for not worrying about the interest rate. But if that's the case, then you're always going to be worried about the interest rate. And at that point, like, you might as well just buy cash and you don't have to worry about interest rate at all. But the
Or
way
just
that I see
paying
it, like I
100%
can't buy it all
interest you're
cash.
paying on rent.
And I mean, at that point, I can't buy all cash. Like I can't, you know what I mean? Like even if I could, like I wouldn't, because there's so many, you know what I
Leverage.
mean? Like it's leverage and using the bank against itself. But like it just is another opportunity for you to realize that like there's always going to be a good time to buy as long as you're focusing on, again, like these six particular points honestly should guide you like throughout your whole entire like home buying journey throughout 2023, especially where there's a lot of noise, either coming from media, either coming from family, friends. Like there's always going to be just a lot of noise. And if you're able to block that out and then focus on those key 6 tips, 6 gems, 6 takeaways, I promise you, your home buying experience is going to be a little bit easier, And we're all trying to hear and be here and accomplish these goals. And that's life. And I take it just like that. Any bonuses? Any bonus giveaways, takeaways, gems?
I think that's a good, because we could keep going on and on
I
and on.
know.
So
I
that's
know.
leave it right
Next thing you
there.
know, like,
That's
it'll
good.
turn into the 63 things that you need in order to have a like, successful buying experience. But yes, take those gems, run with it, Obviously, feel free to reach out to any one of us. Definitely kick that link in bio. Definitely be able to, have the opportunity to share, like, comment on the podcast, give a rating and review as we continue to give these gems, these takeaways, these key like action items for you to have a successful buying experience and a successful real estate experience in 2023. Run with these 6 tips. You will not fail without them. This is Austin Smith, aka More Than an Agent, Jonathan, aka John Does Real Estate with the Real Estate Blueprint Podcast, signing off.